Okay, hello everybody. Caresoft would like to welcome you to our webinar, Managing Access and Licenses in O365. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. We hope that you'll ask questions using the Q&A pod at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation. If for some reason we do not get to your question, the SailPoint team here at Caresoft will follow up with you after offline. Caresoft Technology is a trusted government IT solutions provider delivering software and support solutions to federal, state, and local agencies. Caresoft maintains dedicated teams to support sales and marketing for all of its vendors, including SailPoint. Our contact information will be displayed at the end of the presentation, and a copy of the webinar will be emailed to you. At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Matt Topper, President and Solutions Catalyst at Uber Ether. Matt, the floor is all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie, as always. Let me get the screen share rocking and rolling here. All right. So welcome back, everyone. Another bit of our series on integrating SailPoint in your organizations. Our last series was all about how to run a good identity and access management program with SailPoint and looking at how you can manage employees, external agencies, external constituents coming in, contractors, and some of the integrations that you run into with that. And now we're going to move on to what we see as the next phase of a lot of projects. So over the next couple months here, we'll be talking about some of the major integrations that are happening within many of the agencies we support. So today's probably the most common one we see right now is integrating with Microsoft Azure as well as now M365, what many of remember as O365 has a new name. So as always, we'll send you a copy of the recording. Please submit your Q&As. Really, the best thing we can do here is help you all on your current journeys through identity governance, and anything that's going on the programs you're supporting today, or any questions you have in support of building an identity governance program, we're here to answer. So it doesn't have to be on this topic. It can be any challenges that you're seeing. So myself, I've been doing ICAM for 20 plus years, 100 plus enterprise implementations, architect for multiple big agencies, and ex-CISSP because I forgot to pay the bill for too long. So a lot of times when people come to us, they ask, how do we manage Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Active Directory with our identity governance program? But the reality is that the platform is much, much larger than that within the Microsoft ecosystem. So beyond just managing the human identities, both on premises with Microsoft Active Directory and in the cloud with Azure Active Directory, right? We've got Microsoft 365 and licenses around that. What applications that are installed in your desktop or that you have access in the M365 cloud environment should you have access to? And also with that, how long do you need access to them? What applications run in the Microsoft cloud, right? I think a lot of us have moved to Teams now that we're working from home in the last year, or Slack for chat operations. And that's a lot how our communication happens today. There's a lot of sensitive information that gets uploaded into Teams or OneDrive or SharePoint as associated with that, and some really interesting stuff with Power BI. And then on top of all of that, we actually have the Azure platform that needs to be managed too. So let's just move from left to right across this slide, spend some time here and talk about some of the different things we're seeing across agencies as we're moving out, and some opportunities for cost savings at the same time. So the first thing everybody does, right, is look at, hey, we've had Microsoft Active Directory, we've got one AD domain, we've got 20 AD domains, but they all need to sync up to our cloud environment somehow. We've been doing group management there, we've been doing role management there, but those roles and groups change as you move into the cloud environment and as you move into more collaboration. So a lot of times we're either using SailPoint to synchronize the user accounts from the on-premises Active Directory into the Azure Active Directory, or using the Microsoft Sync tools. And that decision really comes down to how your agency works. If there's subsets of users that are going into the Azure environment, or if you want to bootstrap everybody there and then just control security differently. but that's a pretty common scenario. One of the newer things, right, and that also, as it lists here, is gives you an ability to do a hybrid identity across your location. So now you've got your Azure or your Microsoft Active Directory on premises that runs all of your local network domains, logins. You have your Azure Active Directory, right, that on-premises one does a lot of your printers and machines that are still on premises running in your data centers, applying GPOs across those, applying PAM policies to allow who's going to those things, right? That all that traditional stuff still stays. But then in Azure Active Directory, we also are managing new sets of groups, new sets of roles. As we get into the platform side, right? Who can access what services at what level within those services? Right? Are you a DBA up there? I looked yesterday and I think Azure's up to 15 different types of databases they support, right? So it's not just, oh, you're a DBA. It's, well, which type of DBA and which type of databases, right? And you take that up the stack across their AI tools, IoT tools, machine learning tools, it gets pretty complex pretty quick. And we'll talk about how we do that a little bit better here shortly. But the big thing we're really seeing growing on their Azure Active Directory side is partner identities. And Microsoft has done an excellent job of being able to say, hey, we trust this other Azure Active Directory domain. So if you're in a big organization like DHS, and you might have subcomponent organizations, ICE, CBP, CIS, right? We trust them. They're part of our family. Even during acquisitions, we see on the commercial side, right? You're both in Azure Active Directory. Well, we're combining the companies. We're going to join these domains together and trust everyone coming over. But those identities get loaded directly into Azure. And then we use SailPoint to pull them back in and say, oh, because we trust that other organization and that person's SAML assertion that came over says that they're in this position or this role, we're going to give them access to these internal applications. And all of that is policy driven from the SailPoint side. So really strong capabilities there. And then similarly, there's some great capabilities in there to do invites directly to outside people. So you might be working with a university or working with a corporate organization in the federal government and want to invite certain people into certain SharePoint groups or invite them to access certain subsets of your data. Maybe they're contributing data into a collaboration environment and then pulling it back out. You can do direct invites from Microsoft Active Directory and then use SailPoint to pull that data back in and give them access to everything both in the cloud environment, into maybe another cloud environment like AWS or GCP, or to on-premises applications in your traditional data centers. So that's where we see most of the start happening. Then what we see a lot of next step is, right, we've got Microsoft 365 licenses, and we all know between Premium 1, Premium 2, E12345 or E135, right? Those licenses can get pretty expensive. And even though we have ELAs at most enterprise license agreements at most of these agencies, they still cost us money. And there are caps on the number that can be put in there. So we have, okay, this person has their IA training. They've been marked as a privileged access user. Guess what? Or a privileged user in CyberArk, they get an E5 license or a P2 license because they need to be audited more heavily, right? We can use the triggers from other systems to then change which groups and which licenses they get on the Microsoft side. And then automatically all of that data cascades down. If somebody is put onto a contract and they're marked as an systems engineer, right? That immediately says, well, they should probably be audited more heavily because they have access to systems. All of those type of things can be done. Some of the other cool things we have, and this is something that I do with our team internally, we all get in that situation where like, hey, I need Visio access, or I need Microsoft Project access. Well, you might be a developer on a team, and at the end of the day, you really only need it to get that diagram done for the next couple of weeks, or to look at a project plan for a couple of weeks, and then once it's kind of kicked off and running, send it back to the PM and they kind of roll with it. So in SailPoint, you can actually build in that says, hey, as a manager, I'm going to give you access to that, but only for the next 2 weeks. And then I'm only charged $7.50 for the month versus $15. Versus in the past, it'd be like, well, I got to go spend a couple $100 to go get you that license, and I know you're going to only use it for 2 weeks. It really gives a good amount of flexibility, and also you can manage high-level quantities. So if they say, hey, you only get as part of your ELA a 200 Visio licenses, you can very quickly say, okay, here's all of the people that have been given it. We're at 200. We don't have any more capacity. And the data gets pulled back in that says, but Joe hasn't accessed that in 6 months. Or Sally actually left the organization last week. So if it's already tied to SailPoint, that license would have already been reclaimed. And then it would drop to 199 and you could make another request. Or have it certified to say, by the way, Miss Manager, Mr. Manager, this person hasn't used this in 3 months. Do you want to pull that back as part of a certification process? So it can do some really nice things with the SailPoint tool there. And then as we move to the right into applications, right, as I mentioned before, we've got Teams, we've got SharePoint, we've got Exchange Online, we've got OneDrive Online, we've got Power BI, right? These are all places now that our data is getting spread and shared out. One of the biggest things that I see agencies not yet taking advantage of, but they really should, is this idea of sensitivity labels and contextual policies with the data that's coming through Power BI. So for those that haven't used it before, Power BI gives you an ability to query your backend database systems, pull that data out into Excel spreadsheets, PDF documents, PowerPoint documents, but also apply a policy to those files that come out, and then any derivative files. So you can very much say the data that's being queried is acquisition sensitive, right? And only people within the acquisitions group are able to see this, or this subset of the people in the acquisitions group. If that Excel file or that PDF document gets forwarded out to somebody else on the outside, they're not going to be able to open it. Not only because there's DRM in there that says, hey, you're not on the authorized list, but also because of a policy that it can only be opened on a device that's signed into the domain that we're on. Or I've actually seen this also if you have people traveling overseas. Hey, that's data in there that can only be seen from within the United States. So if you fly to Canada, if you fly to China, if you fly to Europe, you've got that file on your laptop, but it's impossible to be opened because you're not coming from an IP address within the United States, even though you're fully allowed to. And driving which people can be members in those contextual policies or members on those sensitivity levels can all be done through the lifecycle management changes that we talked about in the past with SailPoint. And it brings just an incredible level of power to protecting our data as an organization. Similarly, right, there's team rooms, collaboration rooms that we can automatically add people, remove them from, give them access to bots and external applications. We'll actually get to in a few minutes some of the cool things we're starting to do with bots in SailPoint, where you can actually start making requests for access directly through the bots or approving access requests. I think we're all in a world right now where it's a little chaotic, to say the least, and we might be having to jump out and help our kids through school days or pick them up at schools if we're lucky enough that they can go in person. But right, our days are jumping all over the place just to try and manage our families and lives right now. And we can, instead of traditionally where a request might come in and then it goes to our email and then we've got to click in the email to go back to a SailPoint type application to make an approval, right? That's going to be done through your corporate laptop. We can actually have a chatbot that says, hey, Joe has requested access to this application. That request goes directly to your phone inside of Teams as a bot, and then you can just hit the approve button. And it's fully audited, fully proven that you are logged in, who you say you are because of the controls we put on the mobile devices or phone. And right, very easily, middle of the day, I'm in a meeting, I'm picking up my kids, I'm at practice, right? I can approve, and within minutes, they're back to doing the job that they needed to do. And also in there, give them the ability to say, oh, I approve, but only for 2 weeks, or I disapprove, and here's why. So a lot of really great stuff that we can do with bots lately. And then one of the things that the last one on the right here is the platform. And I see a lot of organizations repeating the problem history of the past. Same type of things that we saw 5-10 years ago after the OPM incident, where we all had to throw privileged access management tools down as part of the cyber sprint very, very quickly, that governing the actual platform, Azure, AWS, GCP, they all literally have hundreds of different applications, hundreds of different platforms, everything you can imagine, right? At this point, voice control and IoT control, AI, machine learning, with thousands upon thousands of permissions across those applications that need to be governed and managed. I'll be honest, it's impossible. Majority of the people that I know that work at AWS and Azure at Microsoft say, we can't even keep up with the things we're releasing on a daily basis, let alone figuring out how to secure it all. And we're giving our developers access to be able to just spin this stuff up on a credit card and trying to get our arms around it. So using a tool like SailPoint, which can actually aggregate the permissions across all of your cloud platforms, actually, right, they have to write this and manage this for their thousands of clients in one spot, and using their AI and machine learning tools to say, hey, this is risky access. Do you really want to give this to a person? Or, hey, we're seeing literally lots of dollars being spent here that wasn't spent before. Is something going on that we need to pull some of this access back? Controlling access to the data, right? Everything down from, can you create instances? Can you create nodes? Can you create new servers? Can you create new databases? How do you manage the data within those databases, the web services that run on top of those, access to those web services up to our front-end applications, access from the web services, or I'm sorry, the web applications to the web services to the data layer, filtering that all through, managing the permissions on that. It's really, really complex, really, really fast. And the SailPoint tools very much with their CAM products can help do that. And then also help control the risk across your on-premises data centers as well as your other cloud environments. I think I saw a stat a couple of weeks ago that 70% of government and commercial agencies now have over 3 different cloud providers that they're trying to support at the same time. So look how long we've taken to try and get our arms around our own internal data centers. Now take that out to the cloud services we have, and now, which is a whole nother data center with a whole nother set of capabilities that need to be managed, and then multiply that out again. No wonder we're all struggling from a security side to do this and need vendors to help us with it. So, and then across the board here, and I think this is one of the things that I have found extremely powerful with the Azure platform, and some of the things we saw in Solarigate last fall fit right along this. So we're able to take alerts in the Azure environment, right? Hey, an account got created directly in Azure. Hey, a new IoT account or a API account got created, or this account got created, then it got deleted outside of the SailPoint process. And we can take those metrics and monitoring pieces, or those metrics and alerts, monitoring and alerts that come out, push that back to SailPoint and say, hey, we had an account created out here. What's going on? And then SailPoint come back and go, yeah, that wasn't us. And throw some flags to our SOC teams that, hey, this happened out of process. We need to go investigate. Was this an admin doing it directly? Was this an account takeover? Was this a scripted attack like we saw with Solarigate? All right, those are all the things that, because we're now triggering the alerts in our SIM systems in the Azure Sentinel tools directly, those tools are talking back to our IGA tools. Our IGA tools are validating it, and then we can immediately start acting on insider threat, outsider threat type problems. Incredibly, incredibly powerful, all brought together. So we've got a couple minutes left here, about 5-ish before we're going to stop for questions. But one of the questions we constantly get asked is, well, Microsoft lives in the identity and access management world and SailPoint's in the identity governance world. How do these work together? Or is Microsoft just going to take over SailPoint? And the answer is, of course, no. If you even look at the Microsoft site and talk to their people, they will say, no, absolute governance. We are not strong there yet. We're extremely strong in self-service password resets, the directory side, some provisioning to cloud applications, and really the conditional policy, contextual, real-time access control side. But the automated provisioning, the certification side, the fine-grained governance, looking across your on-premises and your cloud applications, that's really best done in the SailPoint side. And there's actually some very nice things you can start doing when you pull these things together. So as I was saying before, if you have someone coming over from another agency the first time, we can take that data, and as soon as it comes in, utilize, so that comes in as a SAML assertion, which we get the person's, maybe their first name, last name, email address, their roles within the organization, their single sign-on, their roles, their attributes, that then we can push directly into the SailPoint environment from Microsoft when they come over. And then SailPoint can go, oh, based on this behind the scenes, we actually know that this person needs access to the Bookings app, this OneDrive share, the Planner application, and these Power Apps. And you can actually have a dashboard that shows, hey, welcome to my agency. And all of these apps start lighting up as SailPoint provisions them out. And it's a great experience for the end user to see, hey, I've never worked with this agency. I've never worked with this company before, but look, I came in for the first time. They knew who I was. They knew, based on the organization I'm coming from, what type of access I need to what apps. And it was up and online, versus a lot of the experience today is, hey, come register for this on this website, or wait for us to send you a invite request. And then once you sign in, maybe about a week later, you'll start getting access to applications. And then we can start collaborating, right? It's a very different feel, especially in some of the information sharing initiatives that we are pushing today. So how does that break down into components across standard IAM stacks? So on the left, you'll see, right, a lot of single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, risk-based identity protection. So that's more that contextual access policy of, hey, you always come in from this is Microsoft, so you would only use a Windows 10 device with an Edge browser. All of a sudden, you came in from Northern Virginia. Oh, all of a sudden, you came in with a Linux machine on a curl interface because we didn't get a browser response, and it's in China. Guess what? That's probably not you. Let's pop to that MFA, right? That's the stuff that Microsoft and the Azure environment is fantastic at. That B2B collaboration, self-service password resets, which I think we all saw some of the problems with about a year ago as we all started to work at home. And then some lightweight user group management provisioning. But on the SailPoint side, deeper password management, synchronizing those passwords across applications if you are in a legacy organization that isn't or can't use PKI today. The lifecycle management, have you been here? How long have you been here? If you are a B2B person and you haven't logged in 3 months, 6 months, you should probably pull back some of your access, or send a message out to whoever approved your account to say, hey, this person doesn't really participate here anymore. Should we pull that back? One of the programs we run is the Homeland Security Information Network for DHS. And that's a lot of the things we do is, hey, this person was registered as a collaborator. They haven't been here in 3 months, 6 months, a year. Is that okay? Or should we pull this away? Policy-based access control, cross-cloud, data access governance. And then I'll just real quick go over this. The other thing that not a lot of people have looked at from the SailPoint side of the world is the file access manager capabilities. And right, I think every day there's a new file sharing app that comes out, or that people are trying to get around our CASB interfaces to share information, because we are challenged so much in this world. But the SailPoint FAM tool will actually allow us to look across traditional Windows file shares, cloud collaboration portals, our email systems, the directories, as well as all of the cloud storage, whether that's OneDrive, SharePoint, Box, any of the other big ones out there, even S3 buckets on an Amazon side, and pull all of that data together and look at those files and say, hey, there's employee IDs in here. Hey, there's, right, in government, we can say there's a FOUO tag on here. I'm sorry, I forget what the new FOUO tag is. That's how, anyways, right? There's a secret tag, a TS tag, and this is on an unclassed network. Let's stop that and put some permissions around that device. The other nice thing is it does the, hey, this person was in charge of this SailPoint or SharePoint site. This person is the one that uploaded this file, but they don't work here anymore, or they own this SharePoint site and they don't work here anymore. It'll look at the membership in the SharePoint site and say, hey, the person who owned this doesn't work here anymore, or they're not in this position anymore. Can you nominate us who the new owner is? Right? And then it just makes all of those greases or skids grease to make your organization run faster and better, and just takes care of all of that care and feeding of all these things that happen every day in our environments. So at this point, I just wanted to show real quick some of the things we're doing with chatbots, as I had mentioned earlier. So being able to make requests for applications or roles directly from a Microsoft Teams or Microsoft or Slack interface. So what type of, do you need access to an app? Do you need access to a role? Maybe you're moving groups. Maybe you got assigned to a new team temporarily. You click the application button and then it gives you a search interface. Here's a request that came in. We're looking to new approval for Anna Marie. She's the requester on this. And like here, it'll show us, hey, they're looking for the payroll administrator role for the HR department. So a lot of really nice things we can start doing so that we're not always having to drive back into our laptops or VPN interfaces to get this stuff done. So hopefully that gives everybody some ideas on how we can use SailPoint, Microsoft Azure, Microsoft 365 to push our organizations forward and really not only secure, but enable our organizations to do more securely. So at this point, I'll stop if there's any questions.
Hey, Matt, looks like the first question is, when synchronizing data between on-premises Active Directory and Azure, what is the best approach?
Yeah, so that's a pretty loaded question. And in everything IT, the answer is it depends. As I mentioned, a lot of times we're seeing, if you're wholeheartedly saying, hey, we've got a really good on-premises AD, we want to synchronize that directly up to Azure and have a domain that up there that is a one-for-one match, 110% use the Microsoft sync tools. Don't insert a SailPoint in the middle there. There's really no value into that. However, if you want to say, I've got a subset of an AD domain to handle my privileged access management, right? That's when you start saying, okay, maybe we want to govern this with a SailPoint to have those subsets of membership. Like, we know why those people are going there. Here's the centralized policy that is being listed to manage and govern that. So we can drive back if there's ever an audit, why that account list is listed there. And it's all contained inside of the SailPoint engine. That always makes auditors happy and provides a more secure environment. Similarly, if you are synchronized, if you've got B2B users, B2C users coming in to your Cloud Azure AD environment, you might want to look at pulling those users back into the organization through SailPoint to provision those access to internal applications that you've already wired up there, and also govern those people as well. So that's definitely a deeper question, but some high-level tips on how you might want to make that decision.
All right, the next question is, what about getting directory data into the clouds like AWS or Google?
Yeah, so that's also a very common issue we see today. A lot of times, especially if you are bringing that data across different cloud environments to enable your organization to use an authoritative source of data across all of those cloud environments. Honestly, the easiest and best thing I've seen is running the managed Active Directory instances within GCP and within AWS, and then using that to point back to all of your applications that are within there. I'm still a big proponent of using single sign-on, role-based access control through SAML to go to things like the administrative consoles in an AWS or a GCP, so that it's centrally federated across. And AWS actually released some really great stuff yesterday to help make some of that easier. But if you're really using it to enable your business users, your entire enterprise to get access to applications and have a centralized place to do lookup for attributes, just synchronize your ADs into those domains. That's definitely the easiest and best way to do it.
All right, that's all the questions that we have for today, I believe. I'd like to thank all of our participants for being here today with us, as well as Matt for presenting. We hope the information you received during this webinar has been helpful for both you and your organization. As a reminder, everybody will receive a recording of the presentation and a follow-up email. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to call or email us. Thank you all and have a great day.